everybody. Welcome into episode 126 of the only sports podcast that talks about both Brazilian and American sports. It's two countries, two Americas, all sports. Happy tax day to everyone in the United States. Really not a happy day per se, but hopefully you didn't wait till today to do your taxes. I'm Nicola, as always, from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and joining me from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil is Gus Tomazeli. Gus, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, doing good. And April the 15th in sports is kind of like a mixed emotions kind of day because, in America we have Jackie Robinson's Day. It's a day of remembering one of the most iconic baseball players of all time. He broke so many barriers, especially in terms of integration. He was such a key sports figure in America. And April the 15th, we honored him. But in United Kingdom, in England, we remember the death of 97 football fans that went to Sheffield to watch FA Cup semi-final between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest, and never came back. And there was the famous stampede in Hillsborough Stadium, and they will never be forgotten as well, because they were sports fans that went to watch their beloved team and never come back home. So April the 15th is always a day to remember that as well. Liverpool actually never plays on April the 15th, like never. Like
Yeah,
it's a they always reschedule games. Like today it was a Monday, so no big deal. So that's kind of for me. Of course, I will always honor the victims of the Hillsborough disaster on April the 15th, 1989.
and that's why crowd control is so important. That's what we saw. You can't just have people crushing a pin like that. So always make sure that you're following directions from authorities whenever you go to sporting events, because I mean, you look at the stadium behind me, right? Like Neyland Stadium. It's not natural for 100,000 people to be all in the same place, So we have to all follow rules and directions
Yeah.
to make sure
But
that we all have a safe and fun time.
no, yeah, and of course, the outcome of this incident was the modernization of the British football and the birth of the Premier League we know today. This international league that people from all over the world watch, and modern stadiums, and foreign investors, and all that modernization, unfortunately, was kicked off because of an incident like that. But definitely, crowd control definitely changed significantly in Europe and in England after that incident.
Absolutely, and obviously, rest in peace to all of those that were lost many years ago. But let's get right into it. We're going to start off with a topic that's both American and Brazilian to kind of represent this podcast. Uh, we've been speculating for a while now who would be taking on the Philadelphia Eagles in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Of course, the NFL will be holding their first ever NFL game in Brazil this coming September. And it was announced this past week that the Green Bay Packers, the Cheeseheads, will be making their way to Sao Paulo, right next to where Gus is. And Gus, just what's your take on the matchup there?
I think was a no-brainer. The Packers is such an international brand. It's the one of the most popular franchise NFL franchises in Brazil. They had such a big following compared to the overall NFL fans in Brazil. I think from all the other opponents, there were no team that had like a international superstar or a Brazilian player that would have been like, we got to pick this team. So I think the Packers was kind of like, the choice that fit the brand. But if in interesting, according to the website Meu Timão, the Corinthians, the owner of the stadium that the game will be held, the game is going to be played on September 6th, asked the Philadelphia Eagles to not play with their home jerseys because they're green. And Corinthians' main rival is Palmeiras, and we're green. So it was kind of like an odd request. I understand where it's coming from because the Philadelphia Eagles are the home team, and it's kind of like if the Minnesota Vikings were home team against Green Bay. I don't know how to compare this, but I understand where it's coming from. Like green is not a popular color in Corinthians.
So they picked two teams whose main color is green.
Yeah, yeah, but according to that logic, it's like okay, Green Bay Packers are the road team, so they can wear green. Palmeiras comes and plays against Corinthians at Corinthians Stadium as a road team. It's fine, but the Philadelphia Eagles are the home team. So Corinthians ask Philadelphia Eagles to keep the home team at Corinthians Stadium at least white, because Corinthians is black and white. So, if the Eagles wear white, I guess there will be no problem. There will be 48,000 seats available. Actually, today, the NFL Brazil Instagram released a statement. There is still no tickets being selling or any kind of thing, So, anybody saying they're selling tickets to this game, is a fraud. Don't buy tickets yet. They're not for sale yet when the tickets are available, the NFL social media website, the main one, and the Brazilian NFL social media, of course, they're going to be releasing that as well. But I'm excited. I'm excited. It's going to be a day before a holiday on a Friday night. I'm very curious to see how the crowd is going to feel like. So I am very excited about that big event coming to Brazil.
Absolutely cannot wait to see what happens, and hopefully you'll get to be in that stadium as well. Hopefully,
Hopefully,
those
hopefully,
fingers
fingers,
crossed.
please, NFL, please. Hopefully, you'll be giving me a chance, and it's funny. There's one Packers fan that lives in Santa Barbara do West. He works in radio, and my colleague at Rio Branco, who is a video analyst, who is a Eagles fan, are like already talking to me about carpooling and all that stuff. So you know, NFL fans are excited for this game.
Actually, it'll be an exciting game too. Obviously, Jordan Love. I think obviously I really think took off in the second half of last year versus Jalen Hurts, who I think has a lot of questions heading into this offseason. Will
Yeah, yeah. I think it's gonna be two great teams there, and it's funny because both teams are going to be serious on week one because neither they're not are tanking. Both of them are. They have high expectations for this upcoming season. So I expect them to be a great. I expect this game to be really competitive.
absolutely. I'm curious, in both of the regions with these games, what they're going to do about Friday Night Football. Like, do you move to high school football games for the NFL game? And I feel like that might happen in these regions around Philadelphia and in Wisconsin. So that's going to be
I,
interesting to see as well.
I think they can move a Saturday night light. We already covered high school football games on a Saturday, so I think for 1 week there'll be a no-brainer. I think.
Well, college football then becomes a problem, like with Wisconsin Badgers and
Oh
like
yeah.
Penn State, and yeah, I think maybe Thursday. Well, then again, do you want to go up against NFL opening night? Yeah, I don't know. You're always going to
Yeah.
be competing against something. Maybe Wednesday, but then you got church. So in any case, yeah. So Eagles Packers will be a really good game in Sao Paulo. Can't wait to see what that atmosphere looks like in Brazil. Now, in some darker football news, to say the least, I'm not going to say sad news. So OJ Simpson, probably the most controversial figure of the 20th century in the United States.
Very
Yeah, very. That's an understatement. Extremely polarizing. He did die last week of cancer at the age of 76, according to his family. And OJ Simpson, grew up, was a Heisman winner running back at USC, went on to have a phenomenal career with the Buffalo Bills, set a season record. He was the first running back at the time to cross 2,000 yards in a season, did it notably in 14 games. And of course, after he retired from football, became an actor, commentator, notably did like the Hertz commercial. That was beloved. He was a beloved figure up through the early 90s. But then on one night, June 17th, 1994, all of America was notified that he was running from the police in a white Bronco because at his home, his wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and Ron Goldman, a waiter from a nearby restaurant, were found dead inside of his home, murdered. And he was charged with their murders. And this led to one of the biggest trials of the 20th century, probably the biggest single criminal trial of the 20th century, in which he was infamously acquitted. Johnny Cochran's defense attorney had him put on the glove, told the jury if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. And he was acquitted, and ever since then has been the single most controversial figure in this country, maybe outside of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump probably is a bit more controversial, but I'll put OJ at number 2, maybe Michael Jackson at like number 3, maybe Dan Schneider up there in the top 5. But of course, he actually spent like 9 years in prison for a separate crime in Las Vegas, where he had robbed some sports memorabilia folks who had some of his memorabilia. And he had kidnapped him and held at gunpoint and stuff. So he actually went to prison for 9 years, but he got out and spent the last few of his years, free and died. So this is interesting, and I've been really excited to ask you about this, Gus, because I feel like the American psyche is in a way painted by O.J. Simpson. And I'm just curious, what does an international audience think about O.J. Simpson?
I think in Brazil and I think internationally, I think OJ Simpson started to be kind of talked about it with the streaming services. The Netflix documentary, the ESPN 30 for 30. I think the glamorization of his trial, the Bronco, runaway. I think that kind of created a myth on his own. So that kind of created, the famous persona worldwide. I think uh, in terms of on the field, he was a really remarkable player. He won the Heisman. He set records, but definitely we cannot emphasize that because what he did off the field. And definitely, and from what the documentaries I watched, his trial was kind of influenced by another trial a few years earlier, the Rodney King trial. So that kind of both got mixed, got connected because of the race tensions.
Yeah, and it's kind of unfortunate because you're exactly right about that. Because Rodney King, he gets beat up by L.A. police in the early '90s. Those police get found not guilty of that, just by literally there being a video of Rodney King getting beat up in the streets of Los Angeles, and of course that led to a multi-day riot where dozens of people died across the city of Los Angeles. And you gotta remember, this is the early days of hip hop. And this is like the first time since the late 60s that the country is having a real reckoning about race. Because you got to remember, in the history of the United States, you go back to the 1960s, MLK has his I Have a Dream speech, multiple civil rights. The Civil Rights Act gets passed, Voting Rights Act gets passed. And it seems like we've turned a corner as a country on race through the 70s and the 80s. But the 90s showed there was still a lot of inequity across our country. So when O.J. Simpson gets into trouble, you had a really weird dynamic where a lot of white viewers, you thought, oh yeah, he's totally guilty. And then a lot of black viewers thought the opposite. They thought he was innocent. And I think, and I wasn't alive for this, right? Like I was born in 1998. So, just talking to people who were around for that, they all attest to this, the tensions of it. And even some of them have self-admitted that, maybe they were influenced at the time, one way or the other, based on their racial, who they were race-wise. And, if you think about this happens in like 95, 96, 12 years later, then Obama gets elected president. And really now you have a lot of, a big deal to do about, race again in this country. And then you had Black Lives Matter and Trayvon Martin and all that in American history. So O.J. Simpson fits into that timeline, and it's just pretty insane that when you look at the evidence in this case, it's crazy that he got away with it. Um, and there's a lot there. There's a lot of questions about how the prosecution handled things. I don't think they handled all the evidence correctly, because it seemed like a case that, um, in all intents and purposes, it seemed like he was there when these murders took place. And I know he maintained his innocence. And because he got acquitted, you can't go around and say, "Oh yeah, he totally did it," because I know, like as a journalist, we have to say he was acquitted. Um, but I don't think Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown got justice. Hold on, you're muted.
Yeah, that's true. The murder, according to the to the justice, according to legal documents, the murder of Nicole Simpson and her companion
Yeah,
were never found. Because since O.J. Simpson was acquitted, you know the murder was never prosecuted.
yeah,
So
because the guy who did it got acquitted. So don't sue me for that. But you know, and then it goes further too. When he went back later and did the robbery in Nevada, like he demonstrated there that he was capable of this violence. And we have to ask, could he have had CTE? We just never knew about it. Because there's been a lot of talk about like football players becoming violent later in life. You always see how crazy like Antonio Brown acts these days, for example. You know, and I'm not saying Antonio Brown's O.J. Simpson, but let's be real. When you look at Antonio Brown's actions, I mean, could he be heading down a similar path? Like
I hope not. I hope not, because I hope he, at least, from all his troubles that he gets, at least I hope he doesn't do anything to anyone in terms of unaliving. But that's definitely a question, about how playing football affected your mental health, especially with the CTE, and how this developed into a more violent persona.
Yeah, because I remember during that 2,000-yard season in 1974, I believe, he carried the ball on average 24 times a game. Running backs today don't get that type of workload week to week. So he definitely took more of a punishment, on a week to week basis back then. I remember, too, they didn't have targeting, they didn't have all these rules to protect players. So I mean, they're just taking unfair shots, and it was just totally a part of the game. So, and that's obviously to not excuse anything that he may or may not have done, because obviously he was acquitted on those murders. But if he was innocent, why did he run? Why did he make it a spectacle for the entire country to watch? And additionally, as a journalist, this story is just interesting as well, because a lot of what we do now goes back to that day. The live coverage, like they talk about like the news ticker, they talk about having legal experts on, like all that goes back to O.J. Simpson.
And then I think an entire kind of legal broadcasting industry was created on the uh, afternoon, that July afternoon, the July 17, 1994, I believe,
I think it
or
was
June.
June, because the
June,
NBA
June.
Finals were going on. The Houston
Yes,
Rockets and the New York Knicks. Remember, this
yeah.
was like during the 2 years when Michael Jordan was out of the NBA.
Oh,
So
yeah, yeah, and the 30 for 30 about that June 17, 1994 is, I mean, if social media was invented back then, it would explode, because you had the O.J. Simpson situation, the NBA Finals, World Cup opening, Arnold Palmer, a very big situation in golf. I believe there was also the New York Rangers parade. So there were multiple sporting events happening at the same time.
I mean, it was insane. I mean, I could only imagine what that day was like as a sports fan. Because O.J. Simpson, I mean, if you actually grew up watching him and then seeing that, I mean, that's like, Peyton Manning getting arrested for murder, or Tom
And
Brady getting arrested for murder.
and imagine, for example, the people who work in sports, like ESPN back, or other sports journalists. They had one of their busiest days of their life.
Actually, the busiest probably 2 years of their life. So I put in a question in here: is O.J. Simpson worth mourning? And I I don't think I can say yes to that. I mean, there's just so many questions with this guy, and I don't think he really handled the the post because he could have handled all this more gracefully than he did. And I think he was really arrogant, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to search for the killer," and kind of still try to carry this holier than thou when we all kind of knew that deep down you're probably a bit of a scumbag.
Yeah, of course. I think when he was acquitted, he's kind of, you know, his uh, ego. He was like, "Hey, I'm bigger than life. I am. I got acquitted by a crime that everybody thought I committed. So definitely, he got more cocky. At the end of his life, he had some weird situations, some weird appearances, but I think his family is gonna mourn definitely. And I wonder if the football community should mourn because there's a certain organization that is mourning, but it's very questionable.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. The Heisman Foundation tweeted that they're mourning the death of O.J. Simpson, which is interesting because a certain other USC running back they took away his trophy for getting paid, and we're talking about Reggie Bush, of course, 2005 winner. It's funny. The USC running back that didn't kill somebody got his trophy taken away from him, but O.J. Simpson got to keep his.
Yeah, it goes to show how he was unfairly punished. I think the Heisman Foundation should return Reggie Bush's Heisman Trophy because you know crime that he committed back then, it's literally the norm of college football now. College football now is literally running on NIL, deals and NIL foundations. So, you know, uh, comparing to what NIL is today, Reggie Bush did nothing.
Yeah, yeah. And Reggie Bush has been an outstanding citizen. Of course, he's been a commentator. Um, and as far as I know, hasn't committed any crimes. He should get his trophy back one day, especially if he let O.J. Simpson, someone who literally got committed. If he wasn't, I know he wasn't convicted of the murders, but he was convicted of robbing people at gunpoint at least. I mean, does that not get your trophy revoked? I don't know. Now, granted, I would argue that even if O.J. had been convicted of the double murders, that you shouldn't have revoked his. Because at the end of the day, he did accomplish on the football field what he accomplished. You can't take away what he did on the football field, but we can't celebrate him like the way we would celebrate a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady or any other football great because unfortunately sometimes it's that debate. Is the art bigger than the artist? Like I think about like a Kanye West, right? You know, I used to go around and proudly proclaim that that was my favorite music artist, but I don't anymore because unfortunately that guy, because of his actions, has created a reputation bigger than himself. And even though I still deep down I still love most of his music, I can't publicly rock with him because I can't rock with the anti-Semitism and like the crazy Donda Academy stories where like he's basically on the verge of abusing children. I mean, I can't rock with that. And it's kind of the same deal here with OJ.
Yeah, go back to a point that you made earlier. No, I don't think any organization should revoke any kind of personal achievement only if it's literally cheating, like Ben Johnson in the Olympics. But Reddy Bush did not do anything on the field that was considered cheating. If he broke any rules off the field, fine him, you know, I don't know, fun honorary to punish, but don't punish his accomplishment that he earned fair and square on the field because he broke some rules that was off the field. Because then, what is the standard? What is the standard? So,
Yeah,
so
because I mean, like, do you have to like regulate? Because obviously, I think the goal is, to not commit, bad crimes. But like, what's the line on crimes? Like Brett Favre, he's out here probably stealing from people in a scam in Mississippi.
yeah. So where you draw the line? Only if an athlete broke the rules that are NCAA rules, but not like what is in you know the norm, the day to day life laws.
Well, it's like like Henry Ruggs. Is Henry Ruggs a worse person than O.J. Simpson because he actually got punished for his crime?
Yeah. So what I'm
I mean,
saying is, yeah. So I think it's hard to compare. It's totally different situations, but at the end, you know, we kind of have to because of the backgrounds that they had. They had similar stories. Both were superstars at the University of Southern California. Both went on to have a good NFL career, but at the end of the day, um, one has the Heisman Trophy and another got revoked.
yeah. So there you go. That's the commentary there on O.J. Simpson. Normally, I would wish condolences, but I'm not going to do that here. I do wish condolences though to Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman's families because I'm sure this whole situation has reopened some deep wounds for them. Because I heard I think it was Rich Eisen said that Ron Goldman was asked what he thought about O.J. Simpson passing, and he said the world has lost nothing of value, and it just reminds me once again that my son's not here with me. So
Yeah, definitely the wounds for those families, Nicole Simpsons and Ronnie, are today a little bit, sored.
oh, absolutely. It's just an unfortunate situation that I wish they had gotten some justice for. Um, and on the off chance that OJ didn't do it, then maybe they still can. But unfortunately, I think their chance has long passed them. But to change the mood a little bit, actually a lot, I do acknowledge tonight that was the WNBA draft. And obviously a big night for that league. Probably maybe the most significant night ever for the WNBA because of the talent that's coming into the league. Of course, I see the number one pick, as I have no shock to anyone. We had Caitlin Clark taken number one to the Indiana Fever, which I know Jason Park is so happy about to see his team in Indiana actually, have a superstar on the team. And some of the other top picks here, you had Cameron Brink go number two. You had Camila Cardozo taking number three.
Yeah, making Brazilian basketball proud.
Oh, absolutely. Then we have Rakea Jackson, the Lady Vol, going number four, and Jay Sheldon from Ohio State going number five. I believe where did Angel Reese go? She went.
Number seven to, I believe, I think it's Chicago Sky.
Yeah. And see,
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Chicago Sky.
Yeah, so I got to get better with some of the team names here because I'll be honest, I haven't watched a ton of WNBA the past couple of years, but I think with this crop of players, I'm much more interested to see what they can do. You know, because I think these are by far the most interesting players to be in the WNBA. And obviously, we know about Caitlin Clark, right? And we've talked a lot about Caitlin Clark. But some of these other players, too, like Cameron Brink is really good. Uh, Angel Reese has a lot of fanfare to her. I mean, heck, I'm curious to see what Kaya Jackson does. I thought she was amazing for the Lady Ball at the times this year. Um, And it's just interesting too how much better the WNBA draft is this year versus what the NBA draft is going to look like here in a few months because the NBA draft this year is awful. Overall, it's not very good. I mean, obviously, I'm personally excited to see where Dalton Connect goes, but outside of that, the rest of the draft is just a complete bust.
Yeah, I think WNBA draft, of course, attracted more fans because of the number one pick, Caitlin Clark, but it was a no brainer. I think no right person on their mind down in Indianapolis would have picked someone else. Caitlin Clark is probably already looking for an apartment in Indianapolis even before the WNBA draft because it was a no brainer. Definitely Camila Cardoso going number 3. I thought she was going to go later, but the Chicago Sky moved up to pick her. So that was, and of course, she had a really great postseason, set career high at the national championship game. And Rakia Jackson definitely was a big part of the Lady Vols team over the past few years. Probably one of the biggest recruits uh, Kelly Harper attracted. So it's interesting to see how they do in the WNBA. And I wonder how the NBA is going to capitalize on Caitlin Clark. WNBA should promote the heck out of her. Uh, I think it
This is
was
their chance.
the only thing. For example, she went on Saturday Night Live. She should have gone after the WNBA draft wearing Indiana Fever jersey, talking about her debut or promoting the team and by consequence the league. I think the timing I would have picked different, but it was just nice to see her on a very really important TV program in America.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah. And she was funny too. She could totally become just a legitimate star, just
yeah,
broadly. And that's
and
exactly what WNBA needs, right? I mean, this is the same. They're in a similar position to where they were in the late '70s before Magic Johnson and Larry Bird came in. The NBA wasn't huge by this point, but those two took it to a bigger level and set it up for Michael Jordan to come in the '90s. Uh, if the
what?
WNBA was
Go ahead. Go ahead.
if the WNBA was have a similar rise, this is the moment. This is the moment for them.
And for example, a game that I'm looking forward is Indiana Fever and the Chicago Sky because you had the Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark who already had some beef in college. So people are going to tune in to see how they do now in the pros and play against one another. I think that game is going to get really high ratings.
Yeah. Of course, the first preseason game is on May the 3rd, which is the Indiana Fever versus the Dallas Wings. Now, I don't know, when does the actual season start?
Interesting. I already went to a Indiana Fever game when I visited Indianapolis back in 2019, and now I guess they're not gonna have the promotion they had back then, which was you bought a ticket to the game and you got the next ticket for free. So I guess with Caitlin Clark right now, I wonder if I bet they're not gonna
Oh,
have
ticket
that.
sales are much higher. I
Yeah,
saw a crazy stat where like their ticket sales are are way higher because uh, basically there's some games that are going for as high as 515 for floor seats, which is triple the amount last year.
and I do wonder. I don't know if it's a crazy idea or not. If the Indiana Fever should bring one of their games to Iowa, you know, bring a game to where a crowd will be very pro Caitlin Clark. I don't know if how this idea. Do you think it's a crazy idea?
I mean, I could see it. I mean, they could play like Des Moines or something.
Yeah,
Of course, the closest team right now, well, Indiana, frankly, might be the closest team because Minnesota does have a team. So Minnesota's closer to Iowa. But I mean, you have Chicago, which is relatively close. The first regular season game uh, for the Indiana Fever is against the Connecticut Sun. So, of course, I know the best teams. So the Las Vegas Aces have been pretty good. They won the title last year. They've got Becky Hammond and AJ Wilson. Of course, the New York Liberty have Sabrina Ionesco. So, I mean, obviously they're really good. Atlanta
I
Sparks, I know they've been pretty good.
I wonder, uh, the New York Liberty Indiana Fever game. I would imagine it's going to be played at Madison Square Garden. I think it's going to go really high tickets because Caitlin Clark deserves to play at the mecca of basketball.
Yeah, but I'm very curious to see what some of these other players do. Because, I know for a lot of the older ones, they're probably like, why didn't I get the same fanfare that Caitlin Clark did? I'm sure they're going to want to prove themselves against Caitlin Clark. Even for like the Brianna Stewarts of the world, you know, that, feel like, hey, I've been the superstar for years now, yet no one cared when I was coming up like they care about Caitlin Clark. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens when when these bigger teams play, like when they play like the New York Liberty.
Yeah,
So
I think
it's going to be
one of the most anticipated WNBA seasons.
yeah. We'll see if they can actually make some inroads in with the American sports audience, because we'll have to be honest here. They haven't been. Um, but I'll say I'll give them more of a shot this year. Um, so, well, we'll see what the WNBA can do. On average, last year they had on average about 500,000 viewers, which was up from 379,000 the year before. So they had a pretty nice increase last year. But to really become truly, I think, relevant in the American Sports League, they need to go up by way more than that. So we'll see what they can do.
Yeah,
And I saw the commissioner talking about expansion as well. So, which I don't know what cities would be the best for that. I mean, I think honestly, Knoxville would make sense for a WNBA team. I mean, literally, Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. Few cities are more attuned to women's basketball than Knoxville.
yeah. I think now. I think Knoxville definitely would have been an interesting city. I do wonder, for example, if the state of Iowa maybe would think about it. If or it was just a Caitlin Clark fever, and then it's. But I think you should think about expansion after maybe 2 or 3 years after Caitlin Clark comes in the league, and we see if the numbers that people projected are going to be true.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously, huge night for the NBA. Caitlin Clark heading to Indy, so we'll see how that works for the WNBA. Speaking of staying in the women's game here, we got some news about Kim Caldwell. Of course, we talked about her last week. The new coach on the Lady Vols. There's some two things here that are kind of maybe rubbing some folks the wrong way, or maybe these are meaningless controversies. I don't know. So there was a question posed to Kim Cardwell on social media where a fan had asked her, "Do you know the lyrics of Rocket Top? And if you don't, will you learn to sing it?" And Kim Cardwell jokingly said, "I'm not planning to ever sing it out." Because she was trying to say that, she doesn't sing, is what she was trying to say. But it came across as, I don't want to sing Rocket Top because I'm not interested. And some people took this to mean, oh, she doesn't care about the Vol brand. And also people were complaining she wasn't wearing a North Orange the first couple of days, which I just found super weird. I feel like we wouldn't hear this about most coaches. This
I think
complaint.
I think people are a little bit resistant to her because again, we point out she's not she didn't come from the Pet Summit tree. So when you cut the cord in an institution and the 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 the, the two coaches that went after Pat that worked with her and even played with her, people tend to be a little bit more skeptical. But if she delivers, you know, uh, if she delivers titles and bring the Lady Vols back to the top, everybody's gonna forget, you know, what she did in in the month of April in 2024.
Yeah, and today obviously that controversy got further inflamed when she let Samantha Williams go. Samantha Williams has been an assistant with Lady Vols for 20 years, has been the head assistant for that long, uh, but she wants to go in her own direction of her own staff, which I think any new coach should have the right to do. I mean, shouldn't we agree to that? I would think
Oh
that
yeah, for sure.
that she deserves to do that. Um,
I think
this
they
idea,
should.
go ahead.
I think they should be one permanent assistant coach that, don't leave. You know, coaches can come and go, but one assistant would stay to just, if there is a change, he would, keep afloat, update the kind of the players. But definitely, other, I think if a new coach is coming in, he or she should bring an assistant that works, alongside.
Yeah, I'll say this: it's not like the results of past years have been that great. So this, I think, once again, as you said, this is like the people who are still mad that we didn't hire within the Pat tree, that we got rid of Kelly Harper, are going to be mad about this, and they're going to be mad until Kim Caldwell goes out onto the court this fall, and we can finally see what the Lady Vols look like. But there's no getting around it. The excitement was at an all-time low. People were not invested in the Lady Vols like they used to be. So you needed to do something exciting. Like, look at Iowa. Iowa had amazing crowds this year because they were invested in women's basketball. Ohio State had sellouts. Nebraska had sellouts. I mean, South Carolina was invested. But Tennessee, people didn't care because people didn't want to watch the brand of basketball we played. Um, and you got to bring in the coaches to bring it to do more exciting basketball. And it wasn't like the recruiting was that good either, because that's been a criticism too of this hire is that Kim Caldwell can't recruit. We don't know that yet. And let's be honest with you, Kelly Carper couldn't recruit. She had a player here or there, but look at that roster outside of Rakea Jackson. If it wasn't for Rakea Jackson, who was literally a top 5 pick tonight in the WNBA draft, I don't know if the Lady Vols are a tournament team this year, because that rest of that roster is not that good, and that's tough.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But she seemed very confident on her style. I like the way she handles the media. She had an appearance at the spring game and at the baseballs game, so she's trying to promote herself.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what she should be doing right now. Doing that, build her staff, recruiting, tell the world that the Lady Vols basketball team is going to be back very, very soon. So excited to see what she can do, and all the old heads that keep on complaining about her should give her a chance. That's just my view. Maybe we'll get some young fans back at TVA for the women's games. All right. On the men's side of things, of course, basketballs, they're still kind of putting the pieces together after the devastating loss to Purdue a few weeks ago. And we've had a lot of kind of change. So Jonas Idu has announced that he is going to transfer. And I'll say this, I don't mind this at all. I'll to be very honest with you. I respect Jonas Idu for what he has done as a Vol. But I've got to be honest with you. He was disappointing down the stretch this year, especially in the tournament. And it just felt like every time we played a really, really good center, he just didn't show up. And especially when he tried to play like Zach Edey, he just had no chance. And I want a center that's going to not back down from that challenge. And because I feel like if we had a center that didn't back down from that challenge, that we could have still found a way to win that game. Maybe get someone that gets Dalton Connect a little bit of help. So I wish him the best, but I'm not going to lie. I'm not exactly going to miss Jonas Idu personally.
Yeah, I think we expect more from him. He had a very average Madness, so I agree with you.
Yeah. But what I am excited to see, we did get a new transfer today from Hofstra up in New York. Get ready for this name, Gus. Darlingstone Dubar. So get ready. He is 6'8", 211, and last year averaged 17.8 points and 6.8 rebounds per game. Shot 53% from the field and 40% from the 3-point line. Granted, that was at Hofstra, but still, he started his career at Iowa State. Spent 3 years at Hofstra. We should get a year of him in Knoxville. Um, I think he should be a good addition. I would hope, and obviously, I'm not going to say that he's going to be Dalton Connect because what Dalton Connect did, uh, you're just not going to get that from the vast majority of transfers. But I think he could be a starter next year. I expect him to be a starter and to give us quality points and quality value. And be someone that can really gel with Sakai Ziegler, especially being from New York. So I'm excited to see what Darlingstone Dubar has to do. All right, it's going to do.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. I wonder how he fits within the Rick Barnes kind of playoff style.
yeah, I think any transfer should be excited to play under Rick Barnes because look at what he just did with Dalton Connect. Took him from a guy that no one knew about to potentially a top 5 pick this year in the NBA. So I think any transfer worth his salt should come to Tennessee. Now, this is going to be the fun college basketball topic right here. So Kentucky, of course, they had John Calipari, ditched him in the middle of the night for Arkansas. So Kentucky starts a search. Kentucky fans think, oh, we're going to get Dan Hurley. We're going to get Billy Donovan. We're going to get Jay Wright. And then it turned out that they were trying to get Scott Drew. And that wasn't good enough for them, apparently. We talked about this in the last podcast, how ridiculous the idea that Scott Drew being a bad hire for Kentucky was that idea. Like, Scott Drew would have been a great hire. But even he turns down Kentucky. So what does Mitch Barnhart do, the Kentucky athletic director? He pulls the Pat Summitt deal that the Lady Vols have been doing. Let's hire an alum, BYU head coach Mark Pope, and the seesaw that fans have had the past few days are interesting. They were furious when this hire was announced. They basically were like, this is not acceptable. We are Kentucky. We should hire anyone that we want. Why didn't we hire Billy Donovan? Why didn't we hire Rick Pitino? Why didn't we hire, X name? But then yesterday, Mark Pope, it goes in front of a Rep Arena, which, first and foremost, I'm just going to say this. This is super weird. Why is there 10,000 people there for a press conference? That's weird to me.
Really?
Yeah, well, look it up. There are like 10,000 people there. They filled up Rep Arena for a press conference. Super weird behavior. But then again, it's Kentucky basketball. I get it, but still super weird.
I mean, it's weird because press conference should be in a closed room, only media allowed, that he can answer questions more concentrated. I don't know if you want to promote him in front of Rupp Arena, throw like a Kentucky basketball day or do whatever, but it's really weird.
It's just so weird. And then now fans are acting like, oh yeah, Mark Pope's totally going to lead us now. When 3 days ago you were saying that Mark Pope was a failed hire. I don't know. It really reminds me of some of Tennessee's past hires. Remember, like Jeremy Pruitt and Derek Dooley, and we had to be like, oh wow, this is not a good hire. But then we had to convince ourselves after the press conference, you know what? It's good enough for me. That's what this feels like here for Kentucky. And Mark Pope wasn't awful at BYU, but he's never won a tournament game ever in his career.
Yeah, he has some interesting wins in the regular season, but we know how I think winning in March is more important than winning in November in college basketball. But I think when your backs are against the wall, you go for the safe choice. And also Kentucky fans, they're probably now realizing how much their program kind of stagnated because of this whole immaculable divorce with Calipari.
Right. But I think the idea that Kentucky's just going to do whatever they want in the SEC, those days are done. The SEC is so much better now at basketball. Every single school has the resources now to financially compete with Kentucky in basketball without, diverting attention away from football. I mean, Nate Oates, that he was was a candidate, and Bama was like, yeah, nope, we're not letting you leave. Auburn, they're not letting Bruce Pearl leave. Tennessee's not letting Rick Barnes leave. We got Texas and Oklahoma coming in. They've gotten a lot of resources. It's not going to be easy for Kentucky. Like, just because you have been the basketball powerhouse doesn't mean you're going to be. And let's be real, Tennessee's been the better program this decade. They just have been. And the idea that, I should just expect Kentucky to be like a top 10 team every year. No. No one, just because you have been doesn't mean you will be. And, just ask Louisville. I'm not
Past
saying. Go ahead.
past accomplishments does not translate in steady future success.
Absolutely. I'm not saying Mark Pope is going to be Kenny Payne. He's not going to be John Calipari either. Which, for Kentucky fans, I think they should get ready for more disappointing marches.
But it was an interesting comparison because both, were alums, both came not from, big basketball schools or did any like remarkable accomplishments. So the hire looks similar.
Right. Um, you know, and I was about to ask you that. Who is the better hire there? Because obviously you got Pope at Kentucky, and then Louisville just got Pat Kelsey from Charleston. So, I mean, which one would you rather have?
I think Pope because at the end of the day he had some really good wins in a regular season. I think the most remarkable one was against Kansas in Lawrence. BYU is a bigger school than Charleston. So I can still go with Pope.
Yeah, but then why did Pope lose to Duquesne in the first round? And
I mean,
then, honestly, go ahead.
of course, we definitely should, judge more about the March games compared to November games. But I think, I'm trying to highlight what is good at why I make my choice on Pope. But definitely, both of them have, baggage that make fans think twice about hiring.
Personally, I'd rather go with Kelsey. Kelsey has a much more exciting brand of basketball and has proven he's a program builder versus Pope, which Louisville needs right now. They need a program builder. I think he's a better fit. I'm not saying Louisville's going to be the better team this year. I would not expect that. But I do think Louisville has the better coach here, personally. But I'm curious to see where both programs go. I don't anticipate either one being national title contenders next season.
Yeah, yeah, I think both of them are both programs in the state of in the bluegrass state are really gonna have a big rebuild.
Yeah. Especially with Kentucky, considering that they've been doing the one and done. So now you got to actually build with freshmen that maybe not be, maybe will not be one and done, or go for the transfer portal. So it's going to be very interesting. All right. I want to move to the football field back in Knoxville here because we had the spring game on Saturday. Beautiful day inside Neyland Stadium, only 10,000 people. Because of the ongoing renovations, I can't wait to see what the interior of the stadium looks like in the fall when they're done with those renovations. But in terms of what we saw on the field, I feel like we got pretty much what we expected. All the quarterbacks looked pretty good. Of course, Nico, he threw a touchdown. Didn't make any bad decisions. And I think what really stood out to me was Jake Merklinger, our true freshman quarterback. He was a 5-star in last year's class. He threw 2 touchdowns and ran for 1 and just looked amazing. Granted, he was playing against backups, but still, I was super impressed with him as a true freshman. Dude has an arm, and he can run. He's got wills. I think by the end of the year, he'll be QB2. D-line dominated the O-lines in this game. Of course, I expected that. And plus, we did have some injuries in the O line. So, I mean, kind of an imbalance there. Thankfully, we will not have to play our defensive line in the regular season. Other offenses will have to deal with that defensive line. And the receivers ate in this one. Mike Matthews, a true freshman, super, super fast. Very excited to watch him. Chris Brazell, the transfer to Lane, he got a touchdown in this game. Super excited to see him this fall. And they talked to Drew McCoy during this game. He says he's back on track. He should be ready to go by the fall. I mean, this is an exciting team. I cannot wait for September.
Yeah, definitely the way they ended the season. Very good bowl game against Iowa Hawkeyes, and Nico did a really good performance. So, and spring game, I've been to a bunch of those, and definitely you get a lot of positive notes. I think the only negative notes if there were some like scare injury or something, but you know spring games always are about promoting the team and showcasing what you did throughout the spring practices. And I remember when I asked Coach Hypo about it, that was my question press conference, because the key question is is what we did in the spring practices translating on the spring game, because you had all those opportunities to improve, to practice. So when you had a game with no competition, you expect to see what you practice, being worked.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what's important. You can tell this program. I think he had a interview with I forget his name. It's the guy at On Free. He does a really good job. I can't think of his name right now. He had an interview with Josh Heupel last week, and he talked about how you are in year 4 versus year 1. So I can't. JD Pickle, that's his name. JD Pickle does a really good job covering college football, and yeah, he said, this is the program looks like they're in year 4 right now versus year 1. And I truly believe that. And this is like maybe one of the first true years where like I'm going into it like knowing that the team is going to be good. Like I know this team is going to be good. The question is how good? Are we talking 8-4 good, or are we talking playoff good? And that's the question that will have to be answered in the fall.
Yeah, that's a question. If what we saw on the field Saturday translates to the games in the fall.
Oh, for sure. So very excited to see what we can do then. So some quick baseballs. They swept LSU in the rematch of the College World Series this weekend. A very impressive series. LSU is not the team that they were last year by a long shot. They're 3-12 right now in SEC play. Bad year down for Baton Rouge and LSU. But the baseballs are up to 31-6 now on the season. So phenomenal season. And they have a huge series this weekend. They go to number 3 Kentucky. So it's number 4 Tennessee at number 3 Kentucky, because Kentucky's come out of nowhere and are now really good in baseball.
Yeah, and LSU, of course, they have a rebuilding year when you lose one of the best college pitchers, Paul Skeens.
Right.
So he was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates. So when a key player like that leaves, of course, your program takes a toll. But the baseballs, they are number 4 in the country according to D1 basketball, and I think that shows how Tony V is still, a really good coach, and you know he's gonna get there.
Oh, for sure. Definitely right now it's all about positioning for um, it's all about positioning for next year. Also, one note on the football team, I failed to mention Elijah Herring, our leading tackler from last year, has entered the transfer portal. Granted, he has been injured and he probably wasn't going to start this year. So, that's just a note there. He was a linebacker. He's been a linebacker for the team. Um, Unfortunate, but I understand he wants to be a starter somewhere. So, best of luck to him.
Yeah,
But in any case, Let's move on to some NBA and professional basketball. And I don't know if you wanted to start off with the USA basketball first.
Yeah, let's go
Moving
with
on
the
to the
USA basketball because they announced their team for the Olympics. So they had a lot of good names actually for this team. Um, of course, the main stars are LeBron James from the Los Angeles Lakers, Stephen Curry from the Golden State Warriors. I think for so I think uh both of them are kind of I think is going to be their last Olympics, which is nice to see them uh kind of by the end of their career still be able to represent US. So they have Stephen Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, Devin Booker, Tyrese Halliburton, Anthony Edwards, Drew Holiday, Ben Adebayo, and Anthony Davis. And there might be one open spot, and of course, I think the U.S. basketball team has to bring the best. The days of playing college players in the Olympics are long gone. We saw how basketball developed internationally, and how there's an expectation for the U.S. to win the gold medal in basketball. It's a gold medal or bust. So you have to bring the best.
right. And the question is, are there any countries out there that are going to compete? Obviously, you've got Luka Doncic in Latvia. Granted, he doesn't have a ton of help, but still, Luka in the Olympics is a sight to behold. I mean, he is just crazy. But they don't have the same depth that the U.S. has. Although Canada, you have Shai Gilgeous Alexander, Jamal Murray, R.J. Barrett, Andrew Wiggins, Dylan Brooks, among several other players. Like Canada's going to be really good. Uh, Additionally, France. I mean, Victor Wembanyama, along with Rudy Gobert, Evan Fournier, and Nick Batum. Like France is going to be dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope
The,
France and like Luca's country. Whoa, because Luca's Slovenia. Slovenia. It was the wrong Eastern European country.
yeah, but I think I don't know if Slovenia are in. Who are in right now in the Olympics are France, the host nation, Germany, Japan, Australia, Canada, Serbia, United States, and South Sudan. And there's still
How is South?
one.
Well, they must have won Africa. I'm like, how is
Yeah,
that team in there? Let's see, Olympic team spat.
yeah. So
Well,
so
and
they have,
also too this.
and there's four spots for grabs in the world qualifying. One in Latin America, uh, two in Europe, and two in Latin America. So, and hopefully Brazil can get in because they didn't in the FIBA World Cup. So,
Yeah, hopefully, I want to see Slovenia. I really want to see Slovenia. Um, but I think France is going to be the team. Well, outside obviously the U.S. is the team to beat. But if anyone's going to take him out, it'll be Canada or France. Because you remember, France is going to have home court advantage here,
yeah.
being in Paris. So, and I'm sure Victor Wembanyama is going to want to make a statement on
Oh
the
yeah.
international stage. And
Oh
let's
yeah.
remember, Victor Wembanyama literally finished this year um, as the leader in blocks per game, which is wild.
Yeah, no brainer. He'll be the rookie of the year. He played 71 games. So Popovich didn't, low manage him. He played, as much as he could. Of course, the San Antonio Spurs on a long rebuild, but he showed signs that he can lead this franchise. And of course, there will be a lot of pressure for him to play, in this Olympics because the France is the host nation of the Olympics. He's the biggest star, and he already played one season in the NBA, and so there's going to be a lot of expectations. What is going to be interesting is one of the host sites for the FIFA Men's Olympic Qualified Tournaments is in Riga, which is the capital of Latvia. So I guess it's going to be a lot of pressure for one NBA player.
Oh, for sure. And additionally, too, Nikola Jokic's country. that's going to be there as well. So I can't, and I feel terrible that I cannot remember off the top of my head which one. Yeah, Serbia is going to be there. So
Yeah, Serbia is already qualified. So
is
Luka
Greece going to be there? Will Giannis play for Greece?
Yeah, so Greece is also another whole site of the FIFA Men's Olympic qualifying tournament. So it's Valencia, Spain, Riga, Latvia, Piraeus, Greece, and San Juan in Puerto Rico are the sites for the FIFA Men's qualifying tournaments.
Yeah. So we definitely have to keep track of that. Obviously, the U.S. team looks pretty stacked, and as you said, should be a nice farewell tour. I mean, that should be it for LeBron and Curry, among some of the other uh, players there. So we'll definitely talk way more about that the closer we get. Hopefully, this might be the most exciting basketball tournament ever at the Olympics, honestly. So it's
And
really
hopefully Brazil makes it. Hopefully Brazil makes it.
hopefully. I'm sure we'll be talking way more Olympics here in a few months. All right, so before we get into the playoffs, I want to go over some of the stats here. Some of the stat leaders in the NBA this year. Of course, you're scoring champion by a large margin. I mean, to win this by 3 points a game, or nearly 4 points per game, is crazy. Luka Doncic, we just talked about him a second ago. They're scoring champion. I mean, 34 points per game is crazy. That's crazy. I mean, to do
Yeah,
it and then night out.
yeah, he's a remarkable scorer, but can he? Can this performances also keep in the postseason?
Right. And you look at the rest of the top five here. Of course, you got Giannis. Shout out to Shy Guy, just Alexander. I mean, wow, this guy's just transformed into a superstar the past couple of years. The high and what's crazy here, the top three, none of them are Americans. Of course, Lucas from Slovenia, you got Giannis from Greece, Shy Guy, just Alexander from Canada. Your top American scorer, Jalen Brunson of the Knicks. Who would have had that in their preseason? Guess the American-born player with the highest scoring per average, Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, he's been a key player for the Knicks, and that's why.
Absolutely. And of course, KD finishes at 5. Your highest rebounder, Domantas Sabonis, 13.7 per game. Once again, another player not born in the U.S. You Rudy Gobert, 12.9. Anthony Davis is your top American-born player there at 12.6. Now, assists, you have Tyrese Halliburton. He's the only one with double-digit assists per game. Electric factory for Indiana. Got Luka, Nikola Jokic, James Harden. And out of all the top categories, this is the one that LeBron's in. At 8.3 assists a game, which is wild to think at. Even at his age, he is still making the top 5 in at least one category. Which just goes to show his longevity.
Yeah, 21st season in the NBA, and he's still on the top of his game.
Absolutely. Just real quick, of course, Wembanyama, by a large margin, you're number 1 for blocks per game. De'Aaron Fox's high gadgets Alexander tied for steals. Field goal percentage went to Daniel Gafford for Dallas. And of course, Curry. I mean, and think about Curry's age too. Like, he is still making so many threes per game. I mean, that's 357 divided by 82 is 4.3 threes a game. He's making over 4 threes a game. He's making a 3 a quarter. At his point in his career, that's so impressive. Of course, and then Grayson Allen, your highest 3-point percentage in the country. So, no, that's advanced stuff I don't care about. So, in any case, kind of just what is your take on that? Who do you think should be like MVP after the regular season?
I mean, Luka definitely is on the top. I think definitely Jalen Brunson. I think it's gonna be either Jalen Brunson, Luka Doncic, or Jokic.
I would agree with that because I think Jokic is the best single player right now. But You're going to have a LeBron situation where like they don't want to give it to Jokic over and over and over. It's like last year when they gave it to Embiid over Jokic, even though we all know that Jokic was better, and then
And
Embiid went outside.
Jalen Brunson's a feel good story. It's an American basketball player that is, the key player for the most valuable franchise in the NBA. So there's all those key factors.
Oh, for sure. Um, okay, so let's talk about the playoffs. Now, with the modern NBA playoffs, you got to start off by talking about the play-in games. So tomorrow we have the West Conference. So you have LA, the Lakers, going to New Orleans. This is 7th place versus 8th. So if you're not familiar with the NBA playoff system, this has been in place now for, I think, 3 years. So basically the way it works is the top 6 seeds in each conference automatically go to the first round. And for the play-in, 7 plays 8, 9 plays 10. Whoever wins 7 versus 8 gets the 7th seed and moves on to the first round. Whoever loses that game then has to play the winner of 9v10. Whoever loses 9v10 is eliminated. And then the winner of 9v10 versus the loser of 7v8 fights a do-or-die game for the 8th seed. So if you didn't know, now you know. What do you think? We've seen it a couple of years now. I actually have grown to like this system. I think it's kind of cool to see it come down to these games at the end.
And an interesting thought. If you are, for example, the Lakers or the Pelicans, would you take a risk of losing this game and win the next one and play the young OKC to avoid the Denver Nuggets?
No.
Or it's too much of a risk?
Too much of a risk. Because at the end of the day, Golden State and or Sacramento could beat you in a 1-game playoff. This is basketball. Anything could randomly happen. You gotta win when you got a chance. Especially if you're like New Orleans and you're at home, no. You gotta win. It doesn't matter this time of year. You're gonna have a hard series either way. Yes, Denver has the experience, but I'm not intentionally losing a play-in game.
Yeah, it's too much of a risk. My predictions I'm only gonna give my play-in predictions because for the actual the next round we can, I think, wait for next week. But I think the Lakers. I think the Lakers win, and then the Warriors win, and then the Warriors beat the Pelicans.
I'm gonna have to disagree. I do think the Lakers win, but then the Kings win at home. So the Kings have to go to the Pelicans, and I think the Pelicans will hold on to that 8th seed for the West.
But I know this Golden State Warriors have been a lot of dependent on Stephen Curry, but they're still a viable team.
I don't know. I think the Warriors are definitely on the downslope now. They're nowhere close to what they were in their prime. So I think Sacramento will get them back in this turn. Because remember, this was a first-round playoff series last year. So, and remember, the Kings had absolute heartbreak in this series.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. And also for Zion Williamson tomorrow night, too. I mean, this is the biggest game of his young career so far, going up against LeBron and Anthony Davis in a playing game.
At home.
But tickets are as low as $19? Man, if I were in New Orleans, I would be at that game in a heartbeat.
Oh, of course. It's a do-or-die game with LeBron James against Zion with $20. Sign me in.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in New Orleans tomorrow. How are tickets that low? I might have to drive. Well, I'm not going to drive all the way to New Orleans, but seriously though, even lower bowl seats. I mean, you can get some lower bowl seats for $70.
I guess the Pelicans are not being are not very New Orleans sports fans are not excited about the Pelicans.
I found that there's one section 106, $76. Now courtside's like $400, but like this is crazy. And then there's suites for like 59. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. So in any case, yeah, if you're in New Orleans, go to the playoff game. You can go cheap.
Yeah, I would definitely go.
Okay, so Wednesday we have the Heat at the 76ers. That's 7 versus 8. Wow, think about the pressure that will be on the Sixers in that.
Oh yeah, especially for Joel Embiid.
Yeah, a lot of pressure. I mean, they get rid of Doc Rivers and they have fallen off a cliff, relatively speaking. And of course, we all know how dangerous Miami is. I mean, Miami was an 8 seed last year when I went to the finals. And then 9v10, it just feels like a pointless game to me. I don't think whoever wins this game is going to move on. Atlanta at Chicago. Now, granted, Trae Young has been crazy, but Atlanta has literally nothing else. And their defense is abysmal.
Yeah, like you can see the records, like, both the Heat and the 76ers have winning records, and the Hawks and the Bulls have losing records. They are actually the only two teams in this playoffs in the NBA who have losing records. So they only got in because the expanded playoff. I mean, they're like, they're the best of the worst in the Western Conference, in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. But do you remember Trae Young is a bit of a playoff killer? Remember when he took Atlanta to the Eastern Conference Finals? Okay. So my predictions here, I think the Heat beat Philly in Philly. And then I think the Hawks beat the Bulls in Chicago. And then you'll get Hawks at Sixers. And I'm going with the upset. Give me the Hawks to
Well, hold on.
shock Philly.
The Philly or the Heat? I thought that you said the Heat's going to win.
But no, remember, so the Heat beat 76ers, right?
Oh,
And then the 76ers have to play again in the 8 seed game. And then the Hawks upset Philadelphia. And Philly misses the playoffs altogether.
I don't see the Philadelphia 76ers losing 2 games in a row. So I think the Heat, I agree with the Heat. I think the Heat upsets the 76ers and moves on. But I think the 76ers take care of business and eliminates the Hawks.
Yeah, but could you imagine if the Sixers did lose 2 straight games at home to miss the playoffs? I mean, we're talking about the process blowing up.
Yeah, it's kind of there'll be a very disappointed fan base.
Oh, absolutely. So that would mean our prediction. So I believe um, in my playoffs, I would have in the West, I would have the Thunder taking on I think I chose the Pelicans. The Thunder taking on the Pelicans. Of course, you have Clippers, Mavericks, Timberwolves, Suns, and then you'd have the Nuggets versus the Lakers, which of course rematch of last year's Western Conference Finals. In the East, I would have the Celtics versus the Hawks. I would have Cavs, Magic, Bucks, Pacers, and then the Knicks versus the Heat. And you would have I think, basically the only difference, you would have Thunder versus Warriors in the first round. And you would have the Celtics versus the Sixers in the first round. So if Philly wins either game, they're playing either Boston or New York, which is perfect East Coast, toxicity.
Oh, so. I think NBA ratings are going to get up a little bit because the big brands are competitive, and definitely those matchups in the East are definitely going to get some good ratings.
Yeah, I'll say this: Bucks Pacers. That's a bit of a rivalry. Like Jason was telling me about this earlier about how much those two teams don't like each other. Apparently, they've had some incidences happen between the two, and those fan bases are not seeing eye to eye right now. So just keep that in mind. I mean, either way, for the Knicks, as a first one versus a 2 seed, those Madison Square Garden crowds are going to be insane for this playoff. But you remember the Heat Knicks have had a bit of a playoff history, and then Sixers Knicks. I mean, that's Philly and New York. I mean, you don't have to say much more for Philly and New York if you get that round. Obviously, I think I'm excited to see Orlando, to see what Pablo Banchero and the rest of those boys can do. I guess Donovan Mitchell might discreetly have some of the most pressure out of any superstar in these playoffs. Because remember, last year they did not show up in the first round. And Donovan Mitchell, frankly, outside the bubble, has not played well in the postseason.
Yeah, definitely we can analyze even more the NBA playoffs after those playing games, but the storylines are going to be interesting.
Right. Of course, Clippers Mavs going to be crazy. And then Minnesota, can they win a playoff series? That's going to be huge against the Suns, who are also a bit of, kind of playoff chokers themselves. But as you said, when we know all the matchups, and of course, we'll have the first games this weekend. So we'll be able to really go more in depth as well next week for sure. Additionally, on the hockey side of things, NHL, this is the last full regular season week. Apparently, their final day, I believe it is Friday or Saturday, one of the two. But shout out to the Nashville Predators. They are in the postseason, so I'm excited to see what they can do in the playoffs.
We actually we react to that on our last episode when they lost in overtime, but since the game went to overtime, they got the enough points to get in.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if that happened or not, but that had happened. And there's only a handful of spots open. You have the Detroit Red Wings, Washington Capitals, Pittsburgh Penguins, and Philadelphia Flyers all fighting for one spot. Right now, the Capitals and the Red Wings are in the lead for that. I was actually watching the Canadiens take on the Red Wings earlier. The Red Wings came back from a 4-2 deficit to win in overtime and save their playoff chances. So, and if Detroit makes it, that's a historic brand in hockey. Like, that's one of the original six. Those people love hockey in Detroit. So that'd be kind of cool to see Detroit make it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And congratulations to the New York Rangers. They won the President's Cup, which is the trophy for the best team in the regular season. It's the
which means they
time.
won't win the Stanley Cup.
I mean, they in 1993, 1994 they won both the President's Cup and the Stanley Cup, but then in 2014, 2015 they didn't. So
it's usually a curse. Because I remember when the Preds did it in 2018 and then they lost second round. So usually don't want to be the team with the best record. Of course, Stanley Cup is wild. And kind of like the NBA, when we have a full bracket, we'll sort of break it down. We'll probably bring back our buddy Dylan Becker, who knows a lot more about hockey than us two, to really help us break it down for you. So a quick golf note here. Scotty Scheffler won the Masters. He was the favorite heading into the weekend, and he really took over, especially in the back nine. Some of the other guys like Max Homa, Aberg, Colin Morikawa, they were right there with him, but they all kind of just started falling apart. Like, they started hitting the balls into the water, into the woods. It just was, they all fell apart except for Scheffler. He stayed calm, cool, and collected, which wins the day at Augusta National. Hard golf course. So congratulations to him. That's his second green jacket. I do want to talk a bit about Tiger Woods, though. Tiger Woods needs to retire. I don't know if you saw any of this, Gus, but by the end of the tournament, he could barely walk. He was hitting shots into the crowd. Like, he could barely get a straight shot by the end of the tournament. It was kind of sad to see a once great golfer just falling apart. So I hope for his dignity he retires.
Yeah, I think, of course, that 2019 run was special, was historical, but at some point you gotta, hang the, kind of finish your career in a high note. I think he should have retired after that Masters title, because when you retire with the title, for example, like Peyton Manning, you go on a high. So, but when you kind of insist, when you can't, it takes a little bit of the big. Of course, Tiger Woods is one of the biggest golf players in the world, but when you retired on a high note, definitely brings your legacy to another level.
Oh, absolutely. Quick NASCAR note: Chase
Uh,
Elliott is back for the first
uh,
time. What?
Before NASCAR, another thing to acknowledge: Uncle Vern last broadcast of the Masters CBS.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, Vern Lundquist, a legendary broadcaster. I miss him on CBS, SEC. Of course, the SEC on CBS doesn't exist anymore. Um, just a legendary voice in sports, and he'll always be cherished for his memories.
Yeah, I think he's retired on a high note. Uh, you know, his last master after 40 years of broadcasting, he left also football in the perfect note because now even CBS doesn't have college football have the SEC anymore. So, but definitely a great moment for the Masters. The last time Uncle Vern broadcast.
Yeah, at least it was a little head get Jim Nance though for the
Yeah.
Masters, so that's pretty good. On NASCAR, real quick, Chase Elliott won. First win for him in 42 races. Last year was really bad for him. He missed a couple of races because of a knee injury that he suffered while skiing, and then he was suspended in another race for wrecking Denny Hamlin on purpose. So last year was just bad for him, but he's back in form this year and has won a race. It looks like he could be a championship contender along with his teammates Kyle Larson and William Byron. Unfortunately, the odd man out there is Alex Bowman, who I'm really starting to think should get replaced at HMS. I mean, this dude is just not competitive on a week to week basis like he should be in top tier equipment. I don't know what Alex Bowman is doing. Uh, as Denny Hamlin said 2 years ago, he's a hack. So, and Texas in general is just a crazy race. A lot of wrecks here. I've never been a huge fan of this track, but I have to give it credit. It was a bit chaotic yesterday, a low-key kind of irritating. So, hey, maybe I don't. It was better than I would have expected. However, this week is a great track. Talladega. Love me some Talladega. Wild, chaotic, random. You never know what's going to happen. So, excited to see Talladega. And the last thing I want to bring up for the American side, a bit of soccer news. Inter Miami head coach Tata Marino went after the MLS. So so they were eliminated 5-2 in aggregate against CF Monterrey last week. And basically he blamed MLS for the loss. And he said, quote, I mentioned this earlier. If MLS doesn't ease the various rules it has to have deeper rosters with injuries and suspensions, Liga MX, the Mexican soccer league, will continue to have the advantage. Still, I've always thought, even while working in Mexico and now working in the U.S., the comparison between the two leagues is useless. We cannot compete with Liga MX at the same level because of roster rules. I think process will be changing with alterations coming in the short term. The young players on our bench were too young, just that, too young. The development of the game didn't give way to use them and put in a situation totally adverse. That's why I thought it was best to finish the game with the same players that started. And basically, we're too young, don't have enough depth, and it's because the MLS won't let us have a big enough roster. What do you think about all that?
I think he may be overblown a little bit. Of course, MLS has really rigid rules, but those rules is they don't want to repeat the NASL of the 80s where there are a lot of spending, a lot of stars, and then the league folded. So they want to keep the league afloat with a lot of rules that can, make the teams responsible. And it has been working so far. There's almost a 30-year league. But I understand where Tata Martino's coming from. He wants to see more, hires, more competitiveness, and he coached two teams in the MLS. He won the MLS Cup back in 2018 with Atlanta United. He was the first coach for Atlanta United. I saw how he sometimes got frustrated in his first season because of the roster was really young and he's pointing out. So I think he has some good points, but I think he's overblown a little.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like you still have Messi on your squad, right? Like it's not like you're hurting that bad. At least in my view, you know. So I don't know, but it definitely was interesting that that's what he blamed. But at the same day, it feels like there's a lot of dissension just against MLS. Like, and we see what like the second tier soccer league is in. The what was it
USL.
uh, yeah, the USL. I mean, those games are being carried on like CBS. Then they might have more visibility right now than the MLS does.
Yeah, USL has been a tremendous job of developing that second tier league. They have the uh, two divisions. Teams that they don't want to be playing in bigger stadiums, but they have a very passionate fan base. For example, in the 11, with Jason Warwick, kind of commanding that fan base, and I think the MLS, they are in a pickle because they're never, unfortunately, they're going to take years and years to reach the level of Liga MX. But at the same time, they don't want to do a step that makes their league, makes the league fold.
Yeah, I don't think they're being open enough of American soccer fans. Jason has set point blank. I don't care about MLS because they're not being open to the USL. So they just do a lot of things that I don't think are growing the game.
Yeah, that decision of removing the main MLS teams for the U.S. Open Cup was ridiculous. I think definitely there's some decisions that Don Gabber made that definitely irritates the American soccer fan.
Oh, for sure. But speaking of more soccer, let's go down to Brazil because Gus, I know you were lit, boy. The other night, you were so lit. Talk about it. Tell me
The
what it was
curse,
like.
as I said in my broadcast in Portuguese, not saying English, the curse is over. The curse is over. The curse is over. The quarterfinal curse that Rio Branco had of being eliminated nine straight times when the team reached any quarterfinal, uh, level in third division nationally, Paulista Cup, and now in the fourth division in the state of Sao Paulo. The curse is over. They played really, I think, mature. I never saw Rio Branco got risk of being eliminated, especially when the first half finished 0-0. I knew Taquaritinga was not going to score twice. Of course, at the end of the game, they were a little bit scared because there were a lot of pressure, but at the goalkeeper, talk about redemption. He made a huge mistake that cost Rio Branco the derby game against Union Barbarense and got the coach fired. And now he is the hero in the quarterfinals, saving a really big player, a big play, that uh, guaranteed the tie and Rio Branco advancing to the semifinals. Today was defined the dates. Rio Branco is going to play their home game on Saturday, 3 p.m. Brazil time, 2 p.m. American time against Kings de Jaú. And the decisive game is going to be in the city of Jaú uh, on Sunday, uh, April the 28th at 10 p.m. Brazil time and 11 p.m. American time. No, actually, 10 p.m. Brazil time, 9 a.m. American time. And Kings Jaú has the advantage of you know, uh, playing the second game at home, and they can kind of, with two ties, or if they lose 1-0, win 1-0, the same rules the quarterfinals apply to the same final. So Rio Branco has to win one game, has to win a game to advance. And I know what do you want to show me? Oh my God, that moment.
Yeah, so I want you to kind of tell me what this was like. So, wait, hold on.
So they were yelling at me because that was literally right after I, kind of, went full on the air saying the curse is over, the curse is over. And they throw two or three cups of waters. There was one director that was very rude to me and kind of thought I was mocking the team, which I never did. I was just praising Rio Branco. I was very happy about the curse being over. And of course, on the other note, Rio Branco fans did a really big party, celebrating, jumping the fence. Uh, I mean, I have to show you last year when Rio Branco did that miracle in Penopolis. There were a fan that went to the fence and fell. So that was funny. But uh, on Saturday, nothing like that happened. But I'm used to it. I'm used to it. of encounter angry fans. Of course, the press box was so high that the fans couldn't reach. They could only throw cups, and it was mostly empty water cups because it was so. Oh, Miguel Ribeiro, Dali Tigre, yeah, Dali
Also, shout
Tigre.
out Jason. He says greetings from Indianapolis.
Oh, Jason, you have to come on our show. And hey, Jason, I'm trying to reach the Brazilian assistant coach in 11. He doesn't reply to my Instagram DMs or my comment.
That's
Please
also,
reach.
we've mentioned quite a bit of like Indianapolis and Louisville throughout this broadcast. You actually talked about Caitlin Clark being the new face of the Indiana Fever. Obviously, a huge night for that franchise and for the WNBA as a whole. Of course, we talked about a bit about Pacers Bucks and that rivalry. We compared Louisville v Kentucky with their new coaching hire. So definitely a lot of topics centered in your universe tonight for sure. Um,
But yeah, Vibranco deserved back. Vibranco deserves the spot. It's gonna be a battle because both teams have a huge chip on their shoulders because Kenji Dejao has been 12 years in this fourth division. Rio Branco is six. So both are big brands in the countryside of Sao Paulo State. Carlos Roberto Lembo, my former boss at Vida Nova FM. Fala aí, Carlão, grande abraço para você. É em inglês meu podcast, então I'm sorry, desculpa. I'm just telling my boss that it's an English podcast. I'm sorry, but I'll give him a shout out. And so it's gonna be a battle. Hopefully, 3,000 fans show up. I'm hopeful, but it's gonna be on the 2,000 to 2,300 fans in Decio Vita Stadium.
and did we?
But
And did Rio Branco play this team in the regular season?
oh, they did. They won 2-0. It was a very tough game. Rio Branco played a lot of defense, and they scored early the first goal, and the second goal came in the last play of the game by a penalty kick. So it was a really tough game on the regular season, and in the playoffs, it's going to be even a bigger battle. They Quinjo eliminated Barretos, the rodeo city of Brazil. They lost 2-1, but since they won the first game 2-0, they advanced on the aggregate, which was 3-2.
And also to just talk about like how big, just financially and stuff, would promotion be for Rio Branco to
Oh,
go
I
to
think it would be
A3?
huge deal with more sponsorship, better revenue come from the Paulista Federation. I think is a step of getting back to the top because falling is easy, getting back to the top is very hard. So that's a step Rio Branco fans cannot wait to go back to, and it's a big game on Saturday. Um, Another interesting note: União Barbarense, our rival, got eliminated. They tied both games 0-0. Francana, they were eliminated because of the rule that I just mentioned that teams with better position in regular season can tie two games and be promoted. So Rio Branco fans had a blast. Their team advanced to the semifinals and their rival was eliminated. So good weekend for Rio Branco fans, definitely. Excited for Saturday. Cannot wait to see the game. Quick notes from Brazilian soccer: the Brazilian Championship has kicked off. Week one, a lot of referee controversies, a lot of mistakes from referees. I'm just sick and tired of hearing about this. Oh my god, like yeah. So Nick, if you think about American sports have a problem with referees, Brazil has a lot too. But interesting results. Corinthians tied at home with Atlético Mineiro. I watched the game; was very uneventful. São Paulo lost at home 2-1 to Fortaleza. São Paulo head coach is on a hot seat, Thiago Carpini. Internacional 2-1 against Bahia. Criciúma and Juventude 1-1. Fluminense and Red Bull Bragantino 2-2. Vasco 2-1 against Grêmio. Atlético Paranaense 4-0 against Cuiabá. Cruzeiro 3-2 against Botafogo. But the most interesting fact about this game, and let me show you a scene that you won't believe that happened. Let me put the image to you. Hold on. And let me see if I can find it. So after the game, a fan tried to leave the parking lot, and look what happened to his car.
Wow. What did he do to make them so mad?
No, he was mad. He said that it was his first game. It was his first soccer game he went to. He got lost in the parking lot, and then his car fell into the stairs that led to the stands. So, and it took almost 2 hours for the fire department to remove the vehicle. So that
Wait,
was
so
a
did it
funny.
just drive off on its own, or did he drive off the stairs?
He drive off the stairs. He
How did
drove.
that?
He drove to the stairs.
Wow,
Yeah,
that is
crazy.
insane,
Yeah,
man.
crazy. And my last note, congratulations to Velo Clube from the city of Rio Claro, beating Noroeste, and they are the champions of the second division in the Paulista State Championship.
I was like, congratulations to them, indeed. I still can't get over the guy that drove into the freaking stairs. That
Yeah,
is absolutely crazy.
yeah.
Um,
I know the stairs were kind of, big to fit a car, but you gotta have to be like, hey, this doesn't look like a road.
oh, for sure, for sure. Um, yeah, I guess it's all the time we have for this week on Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. On next week's episode, get ready because it's the NFL draft. Yeah, we're about to dive in to see who will go where in the NFL. Of course, we've got the NBA playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs. Got college baseball really starting to heat up. There's a lot going down, boys and girls. So just hold on to your horses here because no matter what time of the year it is, there's always something to talk about. Because this
Here.
is the only sports broadcast that talks about both American and Brazilian sports. Because Gus Tomazeli is down in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil. I'm Nick Hill in Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States, and we're on top of it all. Because thank you once again for listening to Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. Have a good one.